Hello, I'm Danielle Chauvet and I'm your knitting coach. Welcome to Knitting Nicely. Today we're going to learn the zigzag stitch. So the first thing we need to do is get a length of yarn. I like to use the long tail cast on, and you can see the long tail cast on in one of my other videos. I'll put the link at the bottom of this one. A long tail cast on makes a very nice edge, and that's why it's my favorite. So first we're going to make a slip knot and put it on our right hand needle and pull it so that it's snug against the needle. Then we're going to work on the long tail. So put a Z pattern, go from the bottom across the top and pull up a loop. Let's do that again. Go from the bottom of the Z to the top of the Z and pull through. Bottom, over the top, pull through. And then you're just going to repeat that over and over and over until you get the number of stitches you want on your right hand needle. For this pattern, my zigzag pattern, I am doing a 20 stitch repeat plus 3. And I want 2 patterns repeats, so I'm going to do 40 stitches plus 3. So 43 stitches. So there we go. We've got 43 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34. Oh, we got a few more. 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and then 1, 2, and 3. Alrighty, okay, now we are going to start working on the zigzag pattern. So turn your work over so the wrong side is facing, and we're going to do a simple purl stitch for the first row. So we want a nice edge on our sides, so we're going to slip that first stitch and then purl all the way across that first row. So a purl stitch goes through the front of the stitch, around that needle and pull it through. Go through the front of the stitch, around the needle and pull it through. Through the front, around the needle, pull the loop up. Okay, so now we're just going to go all the way down the entire row using that same purl stitch. And I'm going to speed it up a little here to get all the way to the end. Purl stitch all the way to the end of our row. Okay, here we go. We're at the end, and we're just going to keep on going to the end. Purl all the way through. Okay, 43 stitches purled. Now we're going to turn our work over, and this is the right side facing. This is the side that we're going to make the zigzag pattern. So we're going to slip one stitch with the yarn in the back so we get that nice edge. So grab that stitch and just slip it on over. Don't knit it. Then the second stitch you're going to knit. Now this is where we are going to add a stitch. We're going to get that bar that's in between the 2 stitches and pull it from the front. So insert your left needle into the front, and it's kind of twisting that bar so that it creates an extra stitch. That's called an ML1 or M1L stitch. Make 1 left. Then we're going to knit 8 stitches. After the 8th stitch, we're going to find another bar. Oh, excuse me, we're not going to find a bar. We're going to make the we're going to decrease by 2. So we're going to do a slip 1 stitch knitwise, knit 2 together, and then pass the slip stitch over. Don't worry, we'll do that again so you can see it better. Then we're going to knit 8 stitches. There's 8 knitted stitches. Now we're going to do an M1R stitch. So it's like an M1L stitch, but it's from the back of the bar instead of the front of the bar. And I like to pull that bar a little bit looser so I can get my needle around it and make the new stitch. And this one is twisted in the other direction. M1R. And then we're going to knit 1 stitch and then do an M1L stitch from the front. and then twist that stitch. So now we have an M1R stitch, a 1 knit stitch, and an M1L stitch. Okay, now we're going to knit 8 stitches again. Knit, knit, knit for 8 stitches. And then we're going to do that decrease again. So those 3 stitches, knit, wise, slip, knit 2 together, and then pass that knitted slip stitch over the knit 2 together. Now we're going to do knit 8 again. And we're coming to the end of our row now. And then once we have 2 stitches left, we're going to find that bar again and do an M1R. So from the back, pull that loop loose a little bit so we can get our needle in and knit it. Then we knit 2. And that's the end of our second row. And you can sort of see it starting to look like a zigzag already. We've got points and we've got kind of an upside down V. 2 upside up V's and 1 upside down V. All right, so now we're going to turn our work, and now always on the wrong side of this zigzag stitch, you're just going to purl. But always do a slip stitch at the first stitch so you can get a nice edge. So slip it and then purl all the way down the entire row. Purl, purl, purl. All the way down till we get to the end of the row. This is why I like this pattern, because on the back side you can kind of just relax and just purl all the way through. Okay, we're at the end of the row. Now we're going to flip it over and we're going to do another zigzag stitch pattern. So first slip the first stitch with the yarn in the back, knit the first stitch. Now we're going to find the bar in between, put your needle in from the front and knit from the back of the stitch. So it twists the stitch to the left. Okay, and now we're going to knit 8. Knit, 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 all the way. Now, one thing that I recommend is always to learn to read your work. You see that little loop right there? That's where you slip that stitch over, and that's the same stitch you want to slip over too. So slip that stitch, knit 2 together, and then slip it over, pass it over the knit 2. So now you can see those 2 things. And you're going to be making an upside down V in that part of the pattern. I mean an upside up V, sorry. And now we're knitting 8 stitches again. And we found where our other area was. So you find that bar. You can see that twisted stitch right there. You're going to twist the stitch in the same place. And you can look carefully to see where your middle knit stitch was. So there's a make 1, and then a knit 1, and then make another one. Make 1 left. Okay, always remember that when you're making a stitch, you need to twist it either to the left or to the right. An easy way to remember whether you stitch it left or right is I always think I'll be right back. So it comes in from the back on a right increase. There's that middle stitch that we need to slip over. So we slip 1, knit 2 together, pass that over. There we go, there's another V, and we're going to knit 8. Go all the way to the end until we get to the last 2 stitches, and then find that bar. There's it coming from the back, so it's a right increase, M1R, and then knit the last 2 stitches. Ooh, now you're really seeing the zigzag. Look at that nice V shape coming. There it is. Okay, we all know what comes next. Slip that first stitch to get the nice edge, and then purl all the way down the entire row. Purl, 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 all the way down till we get to the end. Alrighty, now we're at the end. We purl it all the way through to the end. Now we're going to turn it. And we're going to see that that edge is nice and even, and it looks like a little braid because we've been slipping that first stitch. And you can see it on the other side starting to form a nice little braid. I like to do this because then I don't have to put an extra edge around my blanket. It's all done when I'm done. Okay, so slip that first stitch, knit the second stitch, find the bar, and we want it to lean to the left, so we do a left increase, M1L, so that the stitch gets twisted to the left. You see how it's leaning to the left. Okay, do your 8 stitches in knit. Now we're going to do our decrease. So find that middle one where we're slipping that stitch over and do a slip, knit 2 together, pass that stitch over. And now we've done 3 passes. Okay, we're going to knit 8 again, and then we're going to do our decrease. Now you can see that nice V. We've got the 3 decreases, and now we're going to do an increase. You can see that middle row where all those one knit stitches happen. You gotta do an increase on either side of that row of knit stitches. So we gotta lean that one to the right, do our knit stitch in the middle, and lean this one to the left. That was an M1L. So we do M1R, knit 1, M1L. And then we do knit 8 stitches. Now we have to find our decrease. Is it going there? No. We have to find the one with our previous passed over stitch, which is there. So we need to knit 1 more, and then we'll do our decrease. Slip 1, knit 2 together, pass that one over, so that all our passed over stitches are all lined up. Now you can see that knit 1 stitch in between our increases. One's going to the right, one's going to the left, and then we're going to knit 8 till we come to the end of the row, and we're going to do another increase. We want it to lean to the right, so we do a right back. That means that you go from the back and twist it and do your last 2 stitches as knit. All right, you can see them leaning in to the decrease and leaning away from the increases, and that's going to create our zigzag pattern. Decreases, lean in. And there's a lean left, so that's an M1L on the right side of the blanket. Okay, so I knitted a few more rows so you can really see that zigzag pattern. And you can also see the nice braided edge that happens when you slip the first stitch on either side. Makes a nice edge to your blanket. And there you can see that it's zigzagged. So your top and bottom of your blanket are going to have this zigzag pattern, and the right and left side are going to be straight. And there you have it. There's your zigzag pattern. Okay, so now we're going to talk about casting off, or binding off. I call it binding off. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to slip that first stitch, and then we're going to purl the next one because we're on the wrong side, and then the first slip stitch we're going to pass over, and we're going to kind of leave it a little loose. Now we're going to purl the next stitch, leave it a little bit loose, and then pass that stitch over. The reason why we do it loose is because if you do it tight or snug against the needle, then you'll end up with a very tight bind off, and it doesn't make it a nice edge on your bind off edge. One way that you can combat this if you don't like loosening that stitch on your needle is you can use 1 or 2 size bigger needles when you are binding off, and that will create the looser stitches that you want without having to pull it loose every time. So there's the nice little braid that we like to see on the edge, and you'll just do that same thing. You purl one and then slip the stitch over. Here we are at the end of the row, and we're finishing off our bind off, slipping that stitch over, pulling it loose, doing another, slipping it over, pulling it loose, doing a purl, slipping that stitch over. We do that all the way across the top edge of our blanket. And then when we get to the end, we leave that stitch on, leave that loop on, and then we cut and then pull that through. Okay, now you can see that the top and the bottom have a nice zigzag pattern. And that's how your blanket will look. And you'll repeat this pattern depending on how wide your blanket you want. You'll repeat that zigzag over and over again across the width of your blanket. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.